For those of us who have come to the conclusion that there's not going to be any justice done with Anthony Fauci and the COVID cover-up and everything he did, give us reason to think it might be different this time. Is there any reason to think that?
I think so. The House committee investigating this has finally started finding documents that show that Fauci's consigliere was explicitly deleting emails, avoiding FOIA requests, gaming the system, working with the so-called FOIA lady at NIH to figure out how to cover this stuff up. But in the midst of all this, he's bragging about how he's covering up, and they have that email. I'm like, this is a smoking gun.
Wow.
The former head of NIH finally admitted that, of course, we were doing gain-of-function research. Fauci testifies on Monday in front of that committee publicly for the first time. So I think so, but I also think that there's so much that we don't know yet, which is the point of this series. Like, I've never quite comprehended this oversized, insanely, almost militaristic response to COVID. It's unprecedented in American history, an unprecedented power grab. So my point is, they're still doing all this stuff, and Rand Paul is basically my collaborator on this, and he's sort of the pit bull that won't let this go. But if we don't get to the bottom of this, it's going to get worse. Everything
it's going to happen again
in 2020 is going to be supersized.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed. I'm not going to let it go. Rand Paul's not going to let it go. I know Glenn's not going to let it go. People that remember what happened need to figure out a way that they can get their neighbors engaged in the real cover-up.
Yeah, because like you said, it's not over. I mean, COVID might be over, at least the initial panic of that, but they could easily bring that back again. They're already preparing us for bird flu, monkeypox. I mean, who knows what the next big thing will be, but they'll use all of that against us.
This pandemic treaty that they're trying to jam through, the Biden administration is huge advocates of it.
Right.
That is a blank check to give away any semblance of governance, independence, autonomy that
Sovereignty.
Americans have.
Yeah. And give it to the WHO.
Right.
Which I think they'd love to do, but hopefully the Congress won't allow them to do that.
I hope that's true. I see where now. So for BlazeTV subscribers, episode 1 has been dropped, right?
Yes.
Dissident. That leads me to believe that there are multiple episodes.
There are. It's funny because the idea of this is that we don't have all the answers. It's an investigative series. It's kind of a whodunit true crime thing, and I'm going to ask the audience to tell me where I need to go. So there are absolutely more episodes. I've already got one almost finished with Rand Paul. I did one with Scott Atlas, who tells me some pretty shocking things about what happened inside the White House in 2020. But I'm going to talk to people that know things that we don't know because they've dug deeper. So there's this citizen organization on X called Drastic, and it's just a bunch of really smart people that know how to go deep, deep, deep into the internet to find documents that the government doesn't want you to see. So this is an open-ended process. And if people are into it, I want them to actually participate. Like,
excellent.
What am I missing?
Excellent.
So you mentioned that there are things that went on in the White House that are shocking in 2020. So that includes Trump?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's his White House. Yes.
Yes. He's not. We can't exonerate him from the COVID nonsense. Can we?
I'll give you a little teaser of where Scott Atlas is coming from, because he was brought in by people that were worried about Fauci and Birx and this cabal of bureaucrats that had sort of isolated Trump from other voices. And Scott came in and was that dissident voice. I mean, he was absolutely misserved by Fauci, Birx, and that cabal.
Yeah.
And you remember his instincts were actually right. The first thing he blurted out was, he's like, we can't do that. That's insane.
Right. And then he did kind of cave and said, okay, 15 days to flatten the curve. But that turned into much more than that.
We talked about that the other day, which, I mean, really, okay, so aside from, hey, the 15 days to flatten the curve was a nightmare and should have never happened, we were all kind of okay with it. All right, fine. This horrible thing is coming. We don't know what it is. Well, it takes 15 days. We're willing to, shut our doors and hold out for 15 days. But then he didn't go with his gut, and I wish he would come out
and just admit it.
I think should have gone with my gut.
Well served to admit to a mistake there, but I don't think he ever will.
I don't think he's obviously capable of such a thing. But he should come out and say, I got screwed by Fauci and Birx. They lied to me.
Yes, that should have happened a long time ago.
Right. And I honestly, he's having problems with RFK because RFK is saying that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not even specifically blaming Trump. He's just exposing this entire thing. And I think as we dig into this, we're going to discover that, and this is my question, like, well, who is Fauci's boss? We all focus on Fauci. We want accountability for this guy. He's clearly lying to the American people. He's lying to Congress. He's in my mind a criminal, but he's not the top of the food chain. Mm-hmm. And I want to get to the alphabet agencies that are still funding gain-of-function research, are still doing these mad science experiments in the name of biosecurity.
Yeah.
We're still doing it.
Well, Fauci's pretty much now. While I don't think he ever came out. And you can obviously comment on this more than I, but I don't think he ever came out and actually admitted the gain of function. Right? They called it a different name, and it was gain of function. But since he called it a different name, it meant that it wasn't gain of function.
He adamantly denies that he's doing gain of function, even though everyone around him is now admitting.
Correct.
Well, of course we were.
Now, gain of function seems like the dummest thing you could possibly do.
Are you a scientist now?
I'm not
a
scientist.
You a scientist
I just play one on the radio. And it seems like insanity to most of us, I think. Why? What is the reasoning they give us? Are they creating viruses that could spread like wildfire through the human population just so that they can come up with cures for the virus? Is that the excuse? What is the excuse they use to do this?
That's why this is not a public health thing. It is a national security thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a biosecurity strategy where it is absolutely mad science. It's insane hubris. It's a fatal conceit that they have, that they can somehow control nature, manipulate nature. They're going to go into the caves. It's I call it scientism, but their idea is we're going to map every potential thing that could wipe us out, and then we're going to manipulate them and make them even more weaponized, and then we're going to come up with a vaccine. We're going to come up with a cure, and it is an impossible task.
Yeah,
but more importantly, like so insanely dangerous they could wipe out the planet. That thing. I feel that matters.
You think it does? Really?
I mean, and maybe I'm a Luddite, but I'm still there,
We just read, we had a story last week that they were trying to do gain of function with bird flu to where they could make it go human to human instead of animal to human now. I mean, why in the hell would you want to do that?
That is what gain of function is.
Yes. Yes.
And the problem is, and this is part of our series, exposing when Fauci became the head of this biosecurity strategy around 2001, he immediately controlled all the money. And so if you want research grants, if your university receives a lot of money, as many of these universities do, you gotta kiss the ring. You got to do what they say. This is how he was able to manipulate the scientific narrative about COVID. They all were either receiving or were about to receive big checks from NIH.